So we're going to put some focus on the snake head now. And before we do some detail work, I want to get back here with our move brush. So far we are still in the Dynamesh mode. We haven't actually Z-remeshed it. So I'm just gonna work on some of these borders, especially where we have the other element, the other subtool, as well as here on the eye sockets. Kind of want to push that a bit to the outside. And then let's use our clay buildup brush here to add a bit more thickness here to where we have these eyeballs, in combination with smoothing. And I also want to build up a little bit more volume here under the eyes, pretty much. Make sure to smooth it. And I'm gonna actually use our Alt key here to add some depth where we have these eyeballs to make them more visible. Let me just go over here into our ghost mode. And I'm gonna select our eyeballs actually. Make sure the pivot is centered. And I kind of want to scale it here on the vertical axis. Then let's select our move brush, which automatically puts us back here to the draw mode, and kind of push that down a bit here so that these eye sockets are actually aligned with the eyeballs. And let's take a look at it here from different angles. And let's go back here to our H polish brush and smooth that out a bit here. Gonna use the Alt key to give it a bit more depth there. And then I'm gonna smooth it out here in between those eyes. And let's take it here to isolation mode and fill this up here a little bit in the inside as well. I'm gonna use our clay buildup brush. Remember, we are still in the Dynamesh mode, so you don't have to worry about subdivision levels. But let's make sure we smooth it and get the silhouette in a good shape to then use our Z-remesher and work on some details. And I just want to take a look at it here once more in isolation mode, and also smooth out here these bumpy looking details that we had there at the back. And let's take a look here at our reference image once more. Especially we have these nose holes as well. I think those are called nostrils, right? Yeah, the nostrils. So let's use clay buildup and let's use some depth. And on top of that, we're gonna build up a bit here. So we have some Z sub and Z add. Smooth it a bit there. And I'm just gonna Dynamesh it once more here by drawing a selection rectangle there on the viewport so that we have it retopologized, and add a bit more depth here with our Z sub clay buildup. Smooth that a bit. And let's also take another look here at that part where it looks a bit too blurry. So I'm gonna add some C sub there to make it a bit more contrasty. A bit more smoothing there on top of the nostrils. And now let's Z-remesh it. So let's take a look here at our first iteration. Just gonna smooth it there, the mouth wrinkles, and bring it up here to 4 subdivision levels, which puts us to 1.2 million points pretty much. And let's get out of the isolation mode here for the moment. And what I want to do is mask everything that is not the inside of the mouth. So I'm gonna have our regular masking brush here. Not the rectangular one, it's the masking pen brush if you want to look it up in the brush menu, the default one. And let's just lower the size of it and make a mask here that is pretty much covering everything, but I want to leave a bit also where we have these other subtools, so that's why I'm not covering everything there at the back. And now let's go in here and also mask this region on the nose and pretty much down to these mouth wrinkles. Let's take it here into isolation mode once more, so that we have a better impression, just to take a look. And I'm actually gonna take it a bit further here. In ghost mode, press Ctrl and Alt to unmask a region that you originally masked with just Ctrl. And the same here. Ctrl and Alt to unmask these eye sockets. I only want to have the masking information here on pretty much everything where we're gonna put some of these snake scales. That's why I also want to mask out here these nostrils that we were just working on earlier. And now I'm gonna invert that mask so that pretty much the area that we're actually dealing with, that we can work on, is here on the top. And before we add the scales, I want to have one of these filler details here in the center, to not just have it like 100% organic, that snake hat, but to add also some hard surface looking component here to it. So now I'm back to the smaller line, draw size 1, and I'm gonna have C sub, C add, C sub. And also follow this detail around here with another C sub to frame it. And then let's do the same thing that we were doing earlier, if you remember, on the other part. I want to divide this detail here. So let's see what else we can do here on this detail. Zoom out. And I feel like it needs another line here in Z add, so that it doesn't look so empty. Also here at that part, at the front. And let's just do it twice so that it looks a bit thicker. So still being on the trim brush, I want to go over here to our mask pen and mask this region that we were just putting this detail, and kind of overlap it a little bit to the side, so that it's going into the skin part of the snake pretty much. And also here to the front. And here at the back as well. And now I'm just gonna press Ctrl and click here on our object to blur that mask. And let me just undo this dot that I didn't want to have. So I was blurring it 3 times, and also here on the inside I forgot to mask it. So I'm gonna press Ctrl to actually mask this region. And now we have everything masked here that we pretty much don't want to affect. And I'm gonna put back on the standard brush here with this alpha. Remember the one that we had earlier, you can just import it again if you lost it. And then with that alpha information, I'm gonna have our brush here put to a size of 12. But most importantly, we need to change our lazy step radius here to something like 0.8, so that we have actually that kind of effect that we want to have here. Otherwise it's too close by each other and kind of intersects too much. And here with this thing, let's just try that again. Gonna have a bit of a dynamic curve there to follow along that hat, not just a straight line. I'm just gonna Control Z that once more. Something like that here with a nice curve leading up there to the nose. And let's take a look here from the side and also do that. And overall, that works pretty well. So I'm just gonna have it also here at the center. Just a small stroke pretty much. And now we have these nice scales here on that snake. It doesn't have to look 100% realistic like a real snake. It's a bit like a dragon or something. I'm gonna lower our draw size. I mean, we're making a fantasy kind of a sword here to begin with, so it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. Let me just also add a bit of information here on a smaller draw size around these eyes, as well as here at the nose. And then also here, just gonna follow that. So now let's just draw a selection here in the viewport to get rid of the masking information. I want to zoom in here because we had that mask a bit faded. We have some geometry information here from the brush that we want to just smooth out. These tiny dots that you see there. So let me just smooth that, pressing Shift. And before we do more detail work, I want to get back here to these teeth, the mouth region. Let me just snap into our side view here, pressing F and then Shift to snap it into our side view. I want to use the Move tool and bring these teeth a bit more to the front. If I look at the reference images, it looks more to the front. And then I'm gonna scale it a bit here to the center. And now let's get back to the snake hat. I'm gonna put it back to subdivision level 1. Put our ghost mode on. And let's just take our Move tool for the moment and just drag some of these polygons here more to where we have these teeth coming out. Just gonna reposition that a bit more. And let's just take also that sphere and drag it a bit more to the front, since we did the same thing with the teeth, because the idea is that the snake is biting on that and holding it firmly. So back here on our snake hat and our draw mode, let me put ghost mode back on, and I'm just gonna be here in the first subdivision level for the moment. Use our clay buildup brush, and most importantly here around the teeth, to have these gums build up around it. With the clay buildup here, add some extra thickness and smooth it to the sides. And let me just take it into isolation mode so that we're seeing what we're doing there in the back. And also add some more thickness there. Let me go back here to subdivision level 4. And I think that looks pretty cool. So essentially, now let's grab our trim brush Gonna have draw size put to 2. And now let's work on these wrinkles here, the mouth wrinkles. I'm gonna have it very close here to where we have these details put, so that there is this sharp contrast. Let me just redo that, wasn't happy with this. Let's follow it along here. And then I'm just gonna continue here from a different angle and put it right under the nose. So now that we have this line, let's add a few more of those so that it's not just this one mouth wrinkle, but actually looks more wrinkled. And I'm gonna have the same brush size here of 2 and add one of these lines here. Gonna smooth it out here where we have these teeth. And actually I'm gonna select the teeth now, and I wanna use our move tool to bring them out a bit more. Scale them here, squeeze them pretty much to the inside, which means that we are letting them come out more there. And back here to our snake hat, let's continue that line. And now it doesn't clash too much there with these teeth. Gonna have another line here while we are in ghost mode, and I want to also smooth it some more there, these lines, especially where we have these intersections, because this stuff is not supposed to be hard surface. It's not metal. It's supposed to be something that resembles flesh, even though later we're gonna have it as a gold material. But even if you would forge that thing, you still want to make it look like it's an actual animal and not something robotic. So I'm gonna use our Z add to add a bit more extra thickness here, and in combination with our smooth tool we get these nice gums up there where we have these teeth. And let's take a quick look at it here from the front once more. I want to have another line coming out here. Gonna smooth it as well. And let's also take a look at it here from the other side. Let me get back out of the isolation mode to also see it here together with the sphere. And I'm gonna have our subdivision level put to 3, just so that it's a bit easier to smooth this here. Put it back to 4 and smooth it some more. And then actually have this Z subline going up there and not just one complete line going through. Same thing here. And then also down here to really kind of separate out this piece where the tooth is stuck in. Smooth that back out here as well. And let's take a look at it here from that side, do a bit more smoothing as well. Always important to zoom out to see the whole composition and not just up close all the time. And like I was saying, those gums, I want them to be more smooth than hard surface looking. Let's take another look here. You can see how it has these holes there. I think that's where the poison is coming out. Or maybe not. I'm not a snake expert, I gotta admit. But it does have these holes there. So let me just have another line here. And now let's add one of these Z sub details here. And kind of replicate what we saw there on the reference image. So this is coming together pretty nicely here, I would say. Let's take another look, smooth it a bit more here. And let's snap back here into our side perspective and also add some more lines here where it's still looking a bit empty. So gonna have C sub and smooth it. Like I was saying, doesn't need to look too sharp. And especially where we have these teeth, I don't want to have too many lines there. And just gonna add a bit more Z add there where it's building up. And now let's select our teeth here. And so far they are Dynamesh, so I'm gonna click on Z remesher. But before we do more work here on the teeth, I actually want to go back here to our snake head and add some more lines where we have this open space here at the moment. So I'm gonna have our trim brush back here with the draw size of 2 and add some curvy looking line here and smooth it back out. And just make the whole thing more interesting there. Let's take another look. I think that's all that it needed. So now I'm gonna go back here to our teeth. And with symmetry on and local symmetry, I'm gonna smooth one of them, which then automatically gets done on all of them. So let's just make sure it's not too bumpy. And then let's get out of this view. And overall, I think that looks pretty cool. We don't need to put any lines on these teeth because they are just teeth, you know. We don't need to have some crazy details on that. So let me put symmetry on while we have these eyeballs selected now. I'm gonna use Z remesher. Isolate them, and then what I want to do is smooth them out as well so that we don't have this bumpy look. But before I do that, I want to go over here to this deformation tab and polish them, and you can see that this actually saves us the work of having to smooth it. So there's always multiple ways that we can do something. I'm gonna divide it so that we have 2 subdivision levels on these eyeballs. And let me get back to these teeth, and I also want to divide it so that we have 2 subdivision levels there as well, which should be enough. So as the next thing, let me just get back here to the snake head once more. And I want to put our trim brush here to a draw size of 1 and follow this line here on the upper part of it so that we have even more contrast as we had there before. Draw size 1 to add a bit of a contrast to the bigger draw size that we have next to it. And also connect it here under the nose. So then let's zoom in here and just specifically smooth out some of these details from the scales that were kind of affecting that region here of the inner mouth. Just gonna use the smooth for that. And there is something else that I want to be adding here. We already have some teeth here, but what I want to do is take our snake hook brush here and basically have some details coming out here. Let me just do that again. That resemble some more teeth. So I'm just going to use that snake hook brush here to deform the existing geometry that we have there. and make it look like we have some extra pairs of teeth here to make it more menacing and dangerous looking. I'm going to go over here to subdivision level 2. And then what I want to do is use our move brush to kind of give that a bit more of a contrast here. Squeeze it more together so that it actually looks like teeth and not just some random blobs coming out there. Let me get back to subdivision level 4. And I want to smooth that a bit here, where it looks a little strange. So I think that makes for a nice extra detail here, in combination with the front teeth that we have. Just makes it more dangerous. Let's select that ring that we were creating earlier, and I want to duplicate it and move it over here to our snake head. And essentially that detail that we made there earlier, I feel like it's not enough. I want to have this ring here. I'm going to scale it down and position it so that it fits into this same detail that we have there. And I don't just want to use it one-to-one. I want to make some new edge work on it. So I'm going to go back to subdivision level 1, delete higher, and then let's just smooth back out these details that we have on it. So let me zoom in here. Just gonna smooth it to pretty much get rid of the details that we have so that we can make some new details that actually fit the scale and it's not just a one-to-one copy. So next what I want to do is make a mask here at the inside region of the upper part of the ring. And once we have that, I'm gonna invert that mask. And then I want to use our move tool and scale it here vertically so that this kind of a geometry is actually intersecting properly there with the snake head so that we don't have this arch. So now that the geometry is a bit messed up, I'm going to use Dynamesh. Let's try 1300. Too low res. I'm going to undo that, put it to 2200. And that here works better. So now we have this actually here as another subtool that we can work on. And while we're in Dynamesh, I just want to scale it so that it fits better here onto that detail that we already put there. Let me get a better angle here. And then I want to use Z-remesher on it. Divide it. And let's just do the usual. I need to go back to the draw mode. I was still in the move tool. And smooth it out here. And remember, of course, to have symmetry on X and Y. Let's just position it a bit better here. And I want to have it subdivided another time so that we have 300,000 points here on this subtool. Let me just go back into isolation mode here and put it onto ghost mode. And now let's do some work here with our trim brush. Just gonna have it at size 1. And then follow it along here where it kind of intersects with our snake head, but so that we still see it and the line looks like it's properly forged into it. I'm gonna have one of these filler details here on top. Let me just get out of the ghost mode for a moment to see what it looks like. And overall, I think it looks better to have this detail there as before where it was too flat. I want to go back here to our snake hat and just add a C subline here. Draw size 1. And then also down here, I want to have another line of Z sub. And I'm going to have a Z add following along here. And then yet another C sub, just to make that more interesting here, this whole detail. And as well as here, to make it stand out more. And now it's not as flat as it was before. So let's go back here to this ring detail that we have here. And while I'm in isolation mode, I'm gonna have a Z add line here. Z add with a C sub and more Z add. Connected here at the front. Have some more Z add here at the back. And then let's have a Z add with a C sub and a Z add to make that stand out more there at the center of this detail. So let's take another look at it here. And I want to have one of these details, just a simple Z sub with a Z add, but I'm just going to do it once more. And the other way around, where Z add and Z sub is the order. And let's fill that there, this dot there on the side with a Z add. Let's take another look. Let's go into ghost mode here. And I want to have another C sub here at the front. Connect it a bit better. Let's get out of the ghost mode. And yeah, I think that was worth it here, the whole ring detail. So now let's focus here on our sphere. So first of all, let's make sure we have symmetry on, and I'm gonna have it on X, Y, and Z, as well as local symmetry. And let's Dynamesh this sphere here. I'm gonna have a resolution of 2000, and then I'm gonna polish it here with the deformation. So next thing what I want to do is use our move tool, and while we are still here in our Dynamesh mode, gonna increase the size of the brush to 7 and then drag out some extra piece here. I'm not gonna have it as an extra subtool, but make it come out of that original sphere, and that way the whole thing looks more, how should I say, it looks more interesting if you look at it from the top view, that it's not just the plain snake hat, but that sphere has some more interest now. So let's go over here to our ghost mode. And now that we have that, I'm gonna use Dynamesh once more on it to retopologize this. And then I wanna smooth what we did here along these borders, so that it's not bumpy. And then with the move brush, I'm just gonna make that a bit more pointy looking here. Let me get out of the isolation mode. And then let's use Z-remesher on it. And I'm gonna divide it 3 times. Let's go back to isolation mode and smooth out some details, for which I want to go back to subdivision level 1 here. Bring the brush size down and smooth out these bumpy details. And also on subdivision level 2. And then let's just take it back to 3 and get rid of these artifacts that we have here. More smoothing. And then let's snap in here to our side view while we are in ghost mode. Gonna use our trim brush, and I want to have it at draw size 1, and I'm actually going to divide it another time so that we have 4 subdivision levels. Also for this move here, I want to have the Z axis turned off here on our symmetry so that we are only affecting X and Y for the moment. So let's have some C sublines here at first. Let's go over here to our front view and continue that C subline up here, and then also connect that line here with another move up here. And then let's snap back to our side view, and let's have another subline here at the back. And I'm not gonna connect it all the way, because at first let's have more C sublines that reach pretty much here to this piece that is sticking out. And then once we are in our top view, I'm gonna turn Z back on. So now we have X, Y, and Z here. And we can make this perfect ring here pretty much. And I'm gonna put one parallel next to it. And let's see where we want to strike next. Let me position it here, and I want to get out of the Z axis again so that only X and Y is affected. And then let's carry on with some Z add lines here in support for our C sublines. Same thing here. And let's have another line of Z sub following along that path here. Connect it a bit better here. And here I'm gonna have one of these details. Z sub and Z add. And let me take another look at it here from that side, connect it a bit better there. And have some more Z add, Z sub, and Z add information here as well. So there's one thing that I want to do, which is go back here to our first subdivision level and then smooth that out here where we have this connecting line. Let's go also to the second subdivision level, smooth it further, and then on the third as well. And then let's go back here to the fourth and do some further smoothing. And I want to connect that in a way where it's not just one continuous line, but I want to have one of these filler elements here. So I'm gonna put our brush size to 1 and then have another one with 2 next to it. Now let's go back to 1 and add one of these fillers in here, and then have a supporting line going around it here. And speaking of supporting line, let's have another one here as well. And then let's take a Z add line along this path here, together with a Z sub there to support this detail a bit more. And let's take a look at it here from the top and add another C subline here next to the other. Once again, let's try to get a good angle here. And I want to also follow this here with yet another C subline. And let me then connect that here also at the back with another Z add. And let's continue here with also more Z add support lines. Same as here, that wasn't connected yet. So let's add a few more of these Z add lines here along our C sublines. Also here, let's snap into the top view, follow it along this path, and here to connect it a bit better. Now let's take our brush size to 3, and I'm gonna go here into the ghost mode and have one of these filler details here. But I want to have quite a bit of an impact, so I'm gonna have brush size 3, and then I'm changing it to brush size 2 to fill it here with one of these filler details. And then with brush size 1, let's have a C subline around it in support. And I'm gonna go back here to brush size 2 to do a similar thing here, just with C sub information, and then fill it with Z add. Gonna have 3 strokes here to kind of pop it out there. And let's see where we can add some more details. Let's be in isolation mode to take a better look. And let me just snap back here into our side view. I'm gonna get out of the isolation mode and put the ghost mode on and have another Z subline coming out of that here. Follow it along these lines that we already did earlier, and then complement it here with a Z add line all the way here to the back. And I'm gonna hold that out a bit more and then add one of these Z add lines in there. And let's see where we can do more. I want to have another line of C sub following along this detail here with a nice curve. And then also bring it here to the back. And let's follow that also here with Z add. And I know I was saying earlier how it's good to always connect the lines, which in that case, if you look at the back of the sphere, we don't have it connected 100%, but you will never see that. So in that case, I don't really care as long as it's really entirely hidden here in the back of the mouth. And that should be okay. So let's go back here to the mouth now that we talked about it, and I want to add more contrast here to these teeth. So I'm gonna use our trim brush here with draw size 1 and follow along these details that we were pulling out earlier here with a snake hook and make that more visible, that it actually looks like teeth. And I smooth it out a bit and then have some individual teeth here by connecting that further here with our Z sub line. And also here in the back. And then let's add some extra Z add here on top of the teeth. But I'm just gonna have it here on the sides. You can see how this trim brush is really flexible. Even on organic things we can use it. Just gonna smooth it out a bit. And have a bit more of a C sub here along these gums to also give it more contrast. And also here I'm gonna have another line of C sub. It looks a little noisy there at the front, but Let's just smooth it out a bit and it will be perfectly fine once we have it baked later in the normal map. And now that looks more interesting there with those teeth. Before it was a bit too soft. And I want to also add a bit more contrast here by having some extra C sub lines here following along where we already had that. And also down here. And then up here. And that way this looks all a bit more interesting here. So now we pretty much have everything already pretty detailed on the whole sword. But now comes some polishing. So let's take a look at things that we can still do better. And I'm gonna start here with that snake head. Now that I look at it here from the top, what I want to do is take our move brush. I'm gonna go over here to subdivision level 2 and then pull that out more, or actually pull it in where we have those eyelids, and on that part at the front I'm gonna push it out a bit to make these eye sockets more interesting. Give it a bit more of a dynamic shape there pretty much. And let me take the magnify brush. Brush menu, press M and you will see magnify brush. And I'm gonna go here to ghost mode. Gonna put it back to subdivision level 4. And then let's press Alt. I'm actually gonna have the draw size put to 2. Press Alt. And that will push the geometry to the inside. And the magnify brush is pretty much very spherical. So that is an ideal case here for having the eyeballs. But now I'm going to go back here to our move brush and kind of shift it around a bit so that it's not this perfectly round looking eyeball. And what I also want to do is add a bit of extra contrast here to our nostrils. So I'm going to go back here to our trim brush, put it to size 1 and just follow along here pretty much. Mostly here at the top with a C sub. Then smooth it out to the sides. But overall that's pretty much all that we need there. Maybe add a bit of a Z add here around it as well. Just so that this is more noticeable that there are actually nostrils. Otherwise it might disappear in those scales that we were working on. So let's go back to this piece here as well and do a bit more work on that. I'm gonna start here by having another C add line here around these lines that we got there already. Also connected here to the back. And let me just smooth that out a bit here, even though we barely see it. Just gonna connect that here with another line of C sub on top of the already existing C sub line to give that more contrast there, make it pop out more. And then follow along here with Z add. And let's see where we can do some more work here on that. Let me get out of the isolation view, put our ghost mode back on. And I'm gonna have another line coming out of this here. Gonna have this element here looking pretty tacky. Lots of lines, and it's supposed to look as if it's somehow connected to that snake head and has some energy that goes straight into the snake's head. You know, kind of tell a bit of a story here with these details. Let me just add some Z add and C sub here to that part as well. And this here could need some more of these details here with Z sub and Z add also. These tiny little dots. And I'm gonna have another Z subline following along that one here. And like I was saying before, always good to jump out of the isolation view every once in a while. Look at it from different angles to get the overall impression. And I think that we're pretty good with that piece, so I'm gonna focus here on this element once more, where we could also do some more work. Let's just take a look at it here. These details that we were working on earlier, I think it would be best to have a Z add line here as well on top of the existing C sublines that we already have. So let's carefully follow this here. Remember, you can always increase your lazy mouse radius, which might make it easier to follow these kinds of lines. Important to be flexible with that. And now let me go back here also to these details and add some Z add to them to make it stand out more. It really makes a big difference later when we bake the normal map. These kinds of details. And also for our curvature map, which is very important for all the generators that Substance Painter comes with. And it really does make a big difference to have Z add or only C sub or both in combination. So I'm gonna also have some extra Z add here following along these lines. Along this other line that we already have there, the C subline. And then also here to the top and then down here. And let me just get a better angle here on the rest on that line. Sometimes it's easier to draw from left to right, pretty much on a horizontal path versus the vertical path. And this here needs to be connected better. I'm just gonna have more Z add there. And also have another Z sub here to make that a bit stronger, more contrasty. And let's take a look at it here from our top view. Let's see what else we can do here on that. And I kind of want to zoom in here on these details and also give it some extra love here with our Z add lines. And let me just undo that and try again. That wasn't perfect. Like I keep saying, Control Z is your friend. Once again, I wasn't happy, so I'm gonna have it here at the bottom of it, not at the top. And I think that makes it not only easier, but also looks better. And here on these lines, I'm gonna have it on the top. So let's just have some extra Z add lines here. And yeah, sometimes it's good to have these Z add lines on the bottom or at the top and kind of mix it up a bit to get some interesting contrast in there. And it's really also up to you to decide what you like. It's always worth experimenting. So let me just go onto this here and also add a Z add with a C sub. Connect that here. And now let me just rotate the camera, because I find it easier sometimes to draw from left to right, like I was saying before. Connect it here to the top. And then close it off here. Let me just undo that and try that again. And here I'm gonna have one of these filler Z add lines. 2 strokes, or let's make it free, and then follow it along here with a C sub for more contrast. And once again, let's snap back here into our top view. Let's go out of the isolation view to see it here as a full composition. And I want to do a bit more work here on that sphere. Let's get a good angle on it here from our top view. I'm gonna have a small Z subline there. And yeah, I didn't connect the lines there at the bottom because they are entirely stuck in the other subtool. You will never see it. So in that case, we don't have to bother with it. Let me also connect that here with another Z add. And now I want to go over here to our rem skull and kind of follow along where we have that sphere. Make some extra lines here so that it looks as if this somehow is better connected. So let me go back to the sphere and also have a C subline here following along this detail that I just made there, that Z add detail on the rem skull. And I think that looks pretty cool. Let's go back here to our rem skull and see what else we can do here on that. Let me just snap into a different view here from the top. And I want to add some more C subline coming out of this here. Make that feel more connected there. Followed by a C add line. And also have another C subline here coming out of that. Pretty much just one of these dots. So let's take a look at it here from the back. And I'm gonna have another C subline following along the path that we already have there, which once again will help to make this feel a bit more complex there as to what we already had. And let me just see here with the ghost mode in combination with our other subtools. I want to have a bit more of a detail here on this dot that we have there. This filler element followed here by a C subline. And let's take a look here at the full composition. I'm gonna select the ring and just use C sub to kind of carve that in there to make it feel a bit more connected. Really minor thing. So let's take a look at it here from a different angle. And I want to have some more Z add information here following along that horn, which was looking too soft before.